Hi everybody, Mr. Wyatt here, and today we're going to talk about graphing in the coordinate plane. And you might be thinking, wait a second, didn't we already do this? And yes, we did, but I promise toward the end of the lesson today, I'm going to show you something a little bit different, something that probably would fool a few of you if I didn't go through this and cover it with you. All right, but we are going to do a fair amount of review here first before I get to that, but I promise you will see something new before this video is over. So the coordinate plane, it's a way that we can split a space apart into 4 regions in order to help locate points. This is something that is used, for example, if a ship is at sea. I mentioned, if you're playing that board game Battleship and you're marking coordinates and trying to hit ships by hitting the right coordinate that would land on their battleship, for example. Well, any ship at sea, its location can be identified by using the latitude and the longitude measurements, which you see reflected here in this coordinate plane with your horizontal line here and your vertical line here. It's splitting up all of this space into 4 sections or quadrants. Quadrant 1 is in the top right corner. That's where all of the positive values are, and that's where we spend most of our time as 6th graders with the positive numbers. All right, and then which direction do we move when we continue to count the quadrants? Well, we always move in the counterclockwise direction. So quadrant 2 would be over here, quadrant 3 down here in the lower left corner, quadrant 4 is over here in the lower right corner. And the quadrants, for whatever reason, are always numbered with Roman numerals for 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, now where the horizontal line and the vertical line intersect, that is called the origin. Origin means begin, where something begins. And this is where we always begin when we're identifying the location of any point in a coordinate plane. So the location of this point at the origin is 0, 0. And that's in parentheses, okay? And I've mentioned to you before, I think this looks like the face of an owl. If you don't think it looks like the face of an owl, well, you lack imagination, don't you? All right, so anyway, the horizontal axis and the vertical axis are known as the X and Y axis. Here's the X-axis, this horizontal line. Here's the Y-axis, the vertical line. When you start at the origin, you need to know, am I going to go to the right or am I going to go to the left? And you also need to know, am I going to go up or will I go down in relation to where I started here? And so to know which direction to go, we need to use positive and negative symbols. So if you move to the right of the origin, this is in the positive direction. If you move to the left of the origin, you're moving in the negative direction. Up is the positive direction on the y-axis, and down is the negative direction on the y-axis. So to locate points, we use what's called an ordered pair. Ordered pairs always start with X, followed by Y, and they are always in parentheses. And again, I don't want you to get too confused by this. All X is telling you, am I going to move left or am I going to move right? And all Y is telling us is whether we're going to move up or whether we're going to move down on the coordinate grid. So it's directions. All right, so look at the point 2, 3. Where would I locate that on this grid? If I start here at the origin, my X coordinate is 2, so that tells me I need to go 2 in the positive direction because notice it's positive 2. We're starting out with both of these numbers being positive, just keeping it simple. And that would be to the right 2 spaces. And since my Y coordinate is positive 3, I'll go up 3 and I should land right here. Boom, right there. Also, you're going to notice I always have to follow the grid lines. Just like in town, if you're driving, you have to stay on the roadways. It's not good manners to drive through people's yards. Okay? So yeah, that's where 2, 3 would be located. What about 2, negative 3? It looks pretty similar to 2, 3, except the Y coordinate now is negative. So I still move, if I start at the origin, I move 2 spaces right. That's 2 in the positive direction. But then my Y coordinate is negative 3, so instead of going up 3, I need to go down 3 spaces, and I end up in quadrant 4 right here. Bing! What about negative 2, 3? Well, this time I'd start at the origin and go left 2 spaces and then up 3 spaces. And you'd end up, boom, right there in quadrant 2. And if you did -2, -3, where both of the coordinates are negative, then you start at the origin, you go left 2 spaces, and then you go down 3 spaces, which is here in quadrant 3, -2, -3. Okay? Now, what will happen though if one of your coordinates is a 0? For example, if I have 2, 0, if I start at the origin, the x-coordinate tells me to go 2 in the positive direction. 1, 2, 2 to the right. But then my y-coordinate is a 0, so I don't go up, I don't go down. I'm going to be right here on the x-axis, 2 to the right of the origin. Right there is 2, 0. What if we have 0, 5? Now the x-coordinate is 0, which means if I'm asking, do I go right or do I go left? Well, the 0 says, sorry, stay put. You're not going right, you're not going left. But then my y-coordinate, +5, means I need to go up 5 spaces, and that's where I land, right there on the y-axis. All right, what about -3, 0? Well, the x-coordinate tells me I need to walk to the left 3 spaces because that's the negative direction for my x's. So I go 3 to the left, and then the 0 for my y-coordinate says, don't go up, don't go down. I stay right there on the x-axis. So there's -3, 0. One more here, 0, -3. Now it's the x-coordinate that is 0 again, so I don't go left or right. But then the y-coordinate, -3, says go down 3 spaces from the origin, and you end up right here at 0, -3. All right, so that's review on how to graph points on a coordinate plane. Now, look at this coordinate plane and see if you can figure out what is different about this one. Well, I better move myself here so you can see my coordinates here. What's different here is that my grid, look where the 4 is, look where the 8 is, the -4, the -8. On the y-axis, here's 4, here's 8, here's -4, here's -8. 4 is not 4 spaces to the right, it's only 2 spaces to the right. So what's going on here? Well, hopefully you can recognize what's happening here is we're going by 2's. So I could fill in the other spaces. And so I have 2, 4, 6, 8. Going up here, I have 2, 4, 6, 8. Down, we have -2, -4, -6, -8. And left of the origin, we have -2, -4, -6, -8. We can fill in all of those different missing values there. Okay? Now, hang on here. Okay. So let's say I have the point 2, 4. You see 2, 4 right here. If I were to graph this on this coordinate plane, you can see 2 is right here. And then if I go up 4, that's right here. So it's interesting. I actually am going 1 to the right and 2 up. But if you count by 2's, because each space represents 2, you're 2 to the right and then 4 up. And that's where 2, 4 would be located. Okay, so that's a little different from what we did last time. And you do have to be careful whenever you look at a coordinate plane. Make sure you pay attention. What are they using for their spacing, for their intervals between each of the grid lines? Okay, how about the next one, 2, -4? Where would that be located? Well, my x-coordinate is 2, so I go 2 to the right, which is really just 1 space to the right, and then 4 down, so 2, 4, and I land right here in quadrant 4. Here's point 2, -4. Where it gets really challenging is when we have odd numbers. Here, for example, I have -4, 3. Okay, what do I do with that odd value, 3? Okay, if I start at the origin, -4, that means I go 4 to the left. So I go to the left, here's -4. Remember, we're counting by 2's. But then if I go up 3, here's 2, here's 4. So I suppose 3 must be halfway in between here. And boop, it sure is. So -2, -4, +2, +3. That's where that point is located. Now, what if both values are negatives? I have -3, -5. Both coordinates in my ordered pair are odd values. Well, Then I go -2, -3 would be right here. And then -5, I can go down by 2s, -2, -4, -5. I'm going to end up with a point right in the middle of this square here. And there it is, -3, -5 is located right there. All right, if your teacher wishes to pause the video right now at this point, this would be a good place for your teacher to pause the video. And then maybe you could help your teacher figure out where does 6, -1 go and where does -7, 3 go on this coordinate grid. And see if you can figure out where they would go. All right, and then I'll move on to the next slide here. Okay, here's another type of example that you will often see where you're basically showing if you know how to move directions on a coordinate grid. A car is parked. A car is parked at a hotel at -4, 3. It travels 2 blocks east and 5 blocks south to get to a concert hall. What are the concert hall's coordinates? All right, so we need to start out by locating our car at -4, 3. That's where the hotel is. Okay, so -4, 3, there it is. Here's where your car is, here's where the hotel is. See, we're at -2, -4, and then up 2, and then half a space would be one more. So there's our location, -4, 3. Now we're going to travel 2 blocks east and 5 blocks south. Well, directions. Remember directions, you have north, south, east, and west. Okay, so when it says travel 2 blocks east, you're going to go 2 blocks to the right. And when it says 5 blocks south, you're going to go 5 blocks down on this grid. But remember, each space, we're counting by twos here. So if we're traveling 2 blocks east, we're actually only going to move 1 space to the right. That's 2 blocks east. And if we go 5 blocks south, we're going to drop down 2.5 spaces. Okay? And so we're down half block. Well, that's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then where do we end up? We end up at -2, -2. That's the new location after we have moved from the hotel at -4, 3 to the location of the concert hall, which is at -2, -2. Now I'm very quickly going to show you another way that you can do this without actually showing your moves on the grid. So if you take your point -4, 3, remember in ordered pairs, the first value is your x-coordinate, the second value is your y-coordinate. When it says to travel 2 blocks east, which is to the right, you're moving to the right for your x value. So that's the positive direction, by the way, when you're going to the right. Left would be the negative direction. When we get to the y coordinate, up would be positive and down would be negative. Okay, so when we go 2 blocks east or 2 to the right, we're going 2 in the positive direction. So to my x coordinate, I'm adding 2. Now, when we went 5 blocks south on our y coordinate, that's the same as going in the negative direction. So I'm really subtracting 5 from it. And you're going to see we get into something that we haven't discussed in class yet. We will once we get into the springtime. When we get into either April or possibly into May, we'll be talking about negative numbers and integers. But some of you might already know, if you take -4 and add 2, you're going to be at -2. And if you take 3 and subtract 5, you're going to end up in the negatives at -2. And -2, -2 just happens to be the location here of the concert hall after you make the moves. So you can show the moves like this, or you can just show yourself moving along the grid lines. Okay, that's it for today. I hope this helps you, and I will see you later.